I'm in his defense. I'll be his lawyer. I'll say, hey, it's not his fault. Everyone can lose a ton of games in a row without it being their fault. It happens. But I don't know if they should play him in the series because
you're the worst lawyer of all time. First, you present all this evidence of him like terrible stats, and then you're like, also, I don't think they should play him.
Your Honor, my client is completely innocent of all the charges.
He doesn't pay me enough.
But just in case he's not innocent, you might not want to risk anything.
He shouldn't be out in public.
Hello and welcome back to The Dive, driven by IKEA, Season 10, Episode 16. Yes, it's a remote episode. The studio is just currently ongoing operational upgrades at the moment, and hopefully we'll be back next week. But quick remote dive here. One of my friends also just messaged me today, and he was like, oh, my feature is finally live, so I'm going to help him promote it. It's the Discord integration that Riot has been working on for a while, so you can literally just send a direct Discord link to games to people and invite them, and all they have to do is just click on that, which is pretty cool, I feel like, because pretty much everybody now is your number one is you have Discord open on your second monitor and you're playing with your friends.
Yeah, it's just another great way for people to reject my invites to ARAMs,
or ignore. I usually ignore if I'm not going to accept. I almost never like hit the reject. Seems like I don't know, somehow more mean or something.
It's more final, Yeah. You got to leave them guessing. You got to leave them guessing. That's a pretty nice feature though, actually. New way to hit people up because it's. I mean, I don't know exactly how it's going to work. I haven't tried it out yet, but that does seem cool, especially if you can kind of like. Do you send that through Discord? I guess creates the link.
So I literally used it yesterday. We played some arena games.
Okay.
And we're just in the PC bong, like right before it came out. And yeah, he just sent me a link, and the link says Riot Games in it. At first, I was like, "Whoa, people are gonna be sending me random ass links and telling me to click on them." But it looked like a legit link, It said Riot Games, and so I was in the PC box, so I just clicked on it easy.
That's cool.
And I did. He said it was a little bit of a bug at the time, but I did have to like re-log. But that's not supposed to happen. It's supposed to just like go in.
Can you link it in like a channel, like with all your homies, and just like drop the link and people can just join in, or that's sick. Okay,
it's just a link. You can copy paste it anywhere.
Okay, that's actually really nice then. I like that because I was thinking, if you have to go like one by one, it's not really that much more efficient, right, than just like messaging people. But if you can just drop it in a group chat or whatever with a bunch of your friends, that's pretty nice.
Yeah, I instantly, I saw the notification when I logged in, and I linked super easy. So yeah, I kind of want to do that. Just like go to random chat rooms that I don't really hang out in and just drop some ARAM invites, see what happens.
Yeah, it's kind of wild. So that could be fun. Also, on the topic of friends and comms, there's been a lot of talk about all the Lyon comms last week. We had the kind of chat about, people calling each other or telling them to shut up and all that. We had a bunch more comms this week where they're doing that, but I feel like the vibes were really good, and I feel like it gives more insight into the team environment, right? Because sometimes I feel like if you're friends with someone, you're kind of polite, but if you're like best friends with them, then you're flaming the shit out of each other. You know what I mean? Like the whole time.
Yeah, you say, "What are you doing, idiot?
What are you doing, idiot?" Like, come on, man. So I thought it was kind of fun that we got to see some of the comms for Lyon where they're just like flaming each other. Inspired's, flaming Saint overselling the scaling Doran's helm, and Dhokla's getting in on it, but they're all like bantering back and forth, right? And it felt like clear, good vibes, banter, trash talking your homies, and I don't know. It was just fun to kind of get that insight.
Yeah, I like that a lot because that was one of those things where I feel like if they didn't include Saint reaction to it, it would look way different. Because from the outside, you could be like, "Wow, Inspired is like so mean to his teammates, like so unprofessional or whatnot," but Saint was laughing while he's getting flamed. So I love that. I feel like that's actually really good vibes. I would rather have that than a team where it's like everyone's stepping on eggshells, trying to be overly polite, not speaking their mind, because it's good. I mean, obviously, they lost the series, but I don't think it was because of their comms or anything like that.
Are you sure it wasn't because he called him stupid?
No, I feel like that would help. Everyone's just kind of like laid back. You can speak your mind. No one's going to take it that seriously. And sometimes I feel like that kind of way of talking actually makes it feel like less I don't know if offensive is the right word, but it kind of like softens the blow in a way, because it's just like it almost feels absurd when it's like, you're like you're so effing stupid for selling the thing. You're just like, yeah, that was pretty stupid. I shouldn't do that. So I liked it. I thought that was fun.
Yeah, I liked also that we got one from like Dhokla calling him stupid, and so it wasn't just inspired. Because
I really love that everyone was calling him stupid,
but Dhokla was like, "What are you doing, Saint? We watched the same Chovy laning video together. How are you getting ganked?" And then Saint is like, "'Cause I'm human," and he's like, "No, you're dumb." And so it's I really enjoyed that it's multiple perspectives, and so because a lot of times people will like gang up and be like, "Yeah, Inspired is such a drill master, and if he's the only one calling each other names and stuff, then maybe it would be maybe a little bit more odd." But definitely seemed like good vibes on Lyon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely check out Lyon. Their YouTube is at Lyon Latam. They have stuff uploaded there. They also do it on X, on Twitter. They put up voice comms and various clips and stuff like that. So it's fun to see them posting that content, and they've been a really fun team to watch. But we can kind of just talk straight about their series, because they were playing against FlyQuest. There's obviously going to be some debate about how much is Lyon trying to win the series versus how much is Lyon just kind of prepping for playoffs, because they were locked second place regardless of how the match went. They did start Castle in this one, and Castle unfortunately yet to get a win with Lyon. He's 0-3 now. Dhokla came in for game 2-1. They put Castle back in. They lost. Which I'm sure
that's how you can tell they're still practicing, right?
Yeah. Well, and maybe they're losing with Castle because he's not calling them an idiot. We haven't gotten any comms of Castle calling anyone an idiot or being called an idiot, which really is quite concerning, when you think about it.
True.
Yeah, they're in that like, entry level where they're just too polite to each other. They're like, "Oh, I don't know him like that. I can't call him an idiot yet." But I'm sure they'll get there. I remember talking to Scary Jerry like a year or two ago, and he said that Castle was like, he had Zoomer energy. He was just like that. I think he described him as like an annoying little brother who's like, just constantly like shaking people's chairs and just like doing goofy stuff. So I'm sure he'll be totally fine.
He seems like a really nice guy. It's interesting because he's so friendly and like just seems like a genuinely nice, positive, kind person. So it'll be interesting to see how he vibes with that, because not everyone's going to vibe with the like super direct feedback, calling people out. Some people will take it harder, or just even if they are okay with receiving it, they'll struggle to like give feedback in that way. So it'll be interesting to see how he meshes with the team. But we had heard, I think it was Inspired talking about it, just that Dokla's really, really motivated, and I've talked to Dhokla a bit. Like he definitely, he's fighting for his spot, and he's on a crazy win streak right now. So he has been playing well. Lyon had a series against FlyQuest. It was really cool to see FlyQuest win this, and it was a really important series for FlyQuest, even though it didn't matter as much for Lyon, because this series clinched upper bracket. It clinched top 4 for FlyQuest, so it was a really big win for them. And I just think it's been a cool couple weeks for Gryffinn, because when we think back to lock-in, FlyQuest had a good start. Then they played against the teams with the top junglers. And we watched Gryffinn get his world absolutely destroyed every single game by Blabber and Inspired. He was just getting smacked. And I'm not going to repeat the verbiage that Gryffinn used about what Inspired was doing to him. But you can find that clip if you want. But he was I
saw that tweet.
He was getting beat down. And then he played Blabber. Yeah, they lost that series against Blabber, but he actually played a really good series. He was not just getting destroyed by Blabber every game or anything like that, though Blabber did have an incredible game in that series. And then this series played really, really well against Inspired. Obviously had the Nasus game that everyone was very excited to see come out in LCS. It was the first time, I think, in Tier 1 play since like 2013 or something like that we got a Nasus jungle. I had heard the last time was actually Saint Vicious playing it in the LCS.
So LCS was 2013, and then globally it was 2014. So basically the same.
But like really cool to see that come out. He completely ran over the game, and so I feel like FlyQuest is definitely feeling pretty hot right now.
Yeah, I mean, there were so many good stories going into it, like you were talking about with the top lane, as well as like how serious are Lyon going to take it? I kind of want to touch back on that because if you look at the drafts, Lyon, at the very least, I think they were, obviously they're trying really hard to win, but they didn't give away anything. Like their drafts are all stuff that they have used very recently. Like they ran back the Nocturne Silas immediately, even with no Alistar or anything showing. It was like a Nautilus ult is like pretty good, but it wasn't anything like crazy. And so they like ran back a very similar comp there. And then the next game they did one of these like top triangles of the map with jungle and mid having the Yone Sejuani, which they did before. And then the previous time they had Rumble for Dhokla. This time they used to use Anivia for Dhokla. But either way, it's like a priority, AP top laner, strong champion. So I feel like it's pretty similar like ideas for their drafting for the series. And they weren't throwing out new stuff because they're not desperate to win this one, and they want to try and hold as many cards as possible for playoffs, which just makes sense. You're using stuff that you've used before and don't want to give away too much stuff. But they straight up just got demolished and outplayed in the last game with the answers that FlyQuest had. And I thought this was just really smart drafting from FlyQuest side. I did see a lot of people kind of, flaming Lyon's side also. And if you're taking the idea of, they're using like basic stuff and they're just kind of like following like old, priorities and stuff, then it was like, it was okay. And they like put Castle back in, but FlyQuest just like demolished them with this Nasus setup. And then also Lyon had early picked the Yunara and they get the Lulu with the Aphelios, and Masu is a very good Aphelios, and he really likes playing Aphelios, and so it was fun to see that angle for FlyQuest too. They're like hitting you with a lot of specialty stuff here with the Nasus jungle and the Aphelios bottom lane that did really well for them too. So it just made me super hype for playoffs. Like I'm so hyped for playoffs. Like we have quite a few good teams. I would say 5 very good teams. Then our bottom 3, like the last team that gets in there, the 6th team is like, good luck, buddy. But I feel like the other 5 are all very, they very well could take, a series off of any of the other ones. I'm including Sentinels here, by the way, is the 5th team. And yeah, so these last 2 weeks have just been so fun. I feel like with these our strong teams playing against each other, showing good play and different strategies.
Yeah, I just like how you're like, yeah, and C9 is really good, and TL is really good, and FlyQuest are great, and Sentinels is fantastic, and yeah, there's another team in playoffs too,
TL, what? I didn't name the other ones either. I didn't name those ones either. It's just TL is in there, tied right up there in second place.
Yeah, everyone's in there except for one team,
Yeah, and the one team is the 6th team that's might or might not get in.
I think they might have found something.
or Shopify. Who do you actually think is going to get in? Because either one, I'd say, is going to be like the short person in the club.
Wait, is it not decided already?
Yeah,
am I tripping?
I'm trolling. I'm trolling.
I thought it was Shopify.
It is Shopify. It is
Okay.
Shopify. Yeah.
I was like, did I miss something? Like, was I?
Yeah. I just had I was like, wait, is there a tiebreaker game or something?
this a
No.
17
Yeah,
playoffs?
our tiebreaker rules we're all the way played out, so we don't have to. Yeah, we don't have to play
they're
tiebreakers.
locked
Yeah, Shopify got in because of the Contractz carry games.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't have high hopes for them still, but I feel like our predictions were. I don't know if they were all aligned, but it did kind of feel like it was that like DSG dig at the bottom again. So kind of rough for them, honestly. But I do feel pretty hyped about playoffs. It seems like there's not like a really, really clear favorite or other teams that just seem like they can't win at all. So it should be a good time. I wanted to touch a little bit on the Nasus jungle, though, because I'm very conflicted seeing Gryffinn play the Nasus jungle because I've lost to this thing in solo queue recently, and I swear during the game I'm like, this is a troll pick. Like, he is doing nothing. Like, he could be feeding hard, but then as soon as you hit level 6 and get it's not like that item reliant, but the Protoplasm Harness just scales really well on him because he has like a bunch of bonus resist, so he heals a lot of CDR, and he just stat checks you. He just spams Wither at you.
Once he has Sheen on top.
Yeah. I mean, it's just wild. He just kills you. I remember a game I was like Shyvana against it. I was 3 levels up, and he's just solo killing me. I'm like, what is going on with this pick? Like, this is not normally. And so I'm glad Gryffinn proved that it is strong, but I'm also like, oh man, I don't want to see it anymore though, because like something about getting killed by Nasus is just like offensive. You're just like, this is Nasus. It's like a Malphite or something killing you. It's like this is the noob champion. Why is he killing me? Like,
I mean,
so we saw
crazy.
We saw it one time since 2013, and you're like, I've seen enough. I'm done.
Well, I mean, I played it a lot back then. Actually, I think I never lost on Nasus. For a while, it was like Nasus and Zac I didn't have any losses on, and then I kept playing Zac because he was good, and then I started losing. But Nasus, haven't played him since. Hopefully won't ever again because I don't really like him. But it was just like it was an effective champion.
It was funny because in that draft, I actually thought that he was just going to go Shen, right? Because it was like he had been using Shen as an answer to Vi, right? And to these dive comps, and it was, Aurora Vi, and I was like, oh, he's just going to do Shen. But he was saying they asked him about that on the desk after, and he was saying he felt like they needed a bit more damage. That like they have the Annie or whatever, and he just felt like they needed an additional threat. So if Masu died, they would have enough damage because he was like, oh yeah, they're going to die of Masu. I could play Shen, but if they kill Masu through Shen ult, then we don't really have any like other threats that are going to be able to win the fight, and Nasus allows you to kind of have that threat. So I thought that was pretty cool. I thought it made sense. FlyQuest are showing a lot of strengths. It is the continued meme of the Geckos on carries versus tanks though, because they lost the tank game again. They won both the carry games. He had some good moments on the Cassante though. The Cassante, I feel
he was
like
going crazy.
He was, yeah. The Cassante, I like more for him because it feels like it has more individual agency, and he can actually look for some of these kind of plays where he's like trying to solo someone out or go for these big plays. So it feels like Cassante kind of cheats a little bit in that category where it's like you can look for that 1v1 isolation style of fight that I feel like he often is going for.
I think a lot of players would agree with the statement. Cassante cheats, but no, actually, I feel like Cassante is one of those champions that's like, because when he was released, he was so insane that people still kind of have that memory of what he does. But if you play him nowadays, it's like, it's not easy to pull stuff off. He's so much like slower and clunkier to play.
Yeah.
But I remember Gakkos had this play in game 2 when it was like in the bot lane around the tier 1 turret. It was in the middle or late game, but like he just had such a ridiculous engage on Cassandra. He blew like everybody's flash on Lyon. He was like just basically single-handedly set up a winning fight. And when you watch Cassante do that, you're just like, oh, classic Cassante. But I'm like, that's really hard to do. Like, he hit every single ability perfectly to do that. So I thought that was extremely impressive.
Yeah. I think it was the bottom lane tier 2 engaged where he gets his Q3 on multiple people at the tower. And we got the comms listening, and his team is all like, oh, hyping him up. So that was definitely big. I also like that FlyQuest know themselves really well. The thing that you were saying where Gryffinn's answer on the analyst desk was dead on, because they did delete Masu. Like, Masu got big early. It was very successful with Helios. And then, Inspired and Saint were just like constantly deleting him, but that's all they could do. And then they were left with this big problem of the Nasus. So it's like very, intelligent from FlyQuest. And I just love the growth of this team that we've seen in such a short period of time, that they absolutely nailed it with that one.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. They've been getting a lot better, and it is just going to be really exciting to see if going into playoffs, when teams are prepping for them specifically, if there are holes in that gameplay, because that's kind of what happened in Lock-In when we got to the knockout stage. Everyone had these individual plans, prep for Gryffinn, prep for FlyQuest, and that's where they started to struggle. So I'm really excited to see how they're going to do. This team is definitely growing at a really, really fast rate. I think I had them highest in the power rankings of us. I think I had them 4th. They're a team that I feel like they have a really high ceiling. So I'm excited to see that they're kind of getting up there already. The next series we can talk about was Dignitas versus Sentinels. Sentinels did 2-0, so they're coming in kind of like on a bit of a high note. But I mean, I feel bad saying it, but at this point, it was like, I don't know if you saw this graphic that we had, Meteos, but one of our
I know the graphic. Yeah, it was like
the reveal.
Yeah, it's like, which team is this? It's like all Dignitas's opponents.
Shout out to Graves. That was his idea. They did something similar, I guess, in the NFL on NFL Network, where they had like, a stats against it. It was like stats versus a team with a bad defense or whatever, right? And it's like, yeah, the Dignitas opponents are just like first in every category, basically. So when you play Dig, you kind of ball out. And Sentinels did play well. Sometimes when a team is mathematically eliminated, they come in and they actually play a lot better because I think they feel like the pressure is off. But this series was pretty rough. I feel like Dig played worse than usual, honestly, and Sentinels were like completely clapping them.
It was very hard to watch. When I was watching this, I was just like, man, Sentinels, just put them out of their misery. Because there was that interview last week from XU. It was like, they're already eliminated. I think it's pretty clear this team's not working. And so I was kind of hoping for what you said, them to just come in, maybe just like full mute each other, just play the game. Because you will see players sometimes just perform in those situations. I remember, like, this is a super throwback, but like Crepo, I think it was EG maybe, something like that. But there was a team where like they'd been struggling all year, and then as soon as they were eliminated, he just kind of like had a really good performance. And then after the game, he was like, yeah, I just played like it was solo queue, played to just for myself, and their whole team looked better. And so I was like, maybe we can see some magic here with Dig, but nope, not at all, not even close. They were awful. And it's just something to change for that team because it is not working at all.
That's so funny you say that after XU's interview too, because like, yeah, if you don't like or respect the people you're playing with, that's kind of how you treat them. You just deaf and mute, and they're like, yeah,
probably will go better.
I played it like it was solo queue, where I also don't like or respect my teammates.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I honestly feel like that would be a good exercise. I talked about it a couple weeks ago, but like the no comms scrims and stuff, because it's like sometimes you're stuck with two. I assume most of the time on these bottom teams, it's like players are stuck between what they would naturally do and then what they think their team wants them to do. And so I think that is a big contributor for like why some of these performances look so bad. Players will just like do really strange things. And I think it's just that tug of doing like what I think my team wants me to do, even if I don't necessarily believe in it. So maybe the solution is, hey man, play it like solo queue, full mute all, just like turn off your mini map and just go.
Yeah,
probably wouldn't work very well, but might be better than what we saw.
Yeah, it can't be worse. I was
wow.
True.
I mean, they're losing every game, right? Like I didn't even mean that a flaming way. I mean, it's just like when you're losing every game, it's worth trying something different, right? Just see if you can kind of figure something out going a different way. I will say, with Sentinels, I think they played a good series. I think Sentinels is definitely a threat to take down some of the big teams. But I also feel like they have some specialty picks that they just look so good on every time they play. And I always wonder, when you have these specific strategies that are so effective, will that work in a best of 5, right? Because not only in a best of 5 is it at max going to only get you one win, even if you aren't getting it banned out, but secondary, a lot of teams are going to be able to actually come in and target ban these picks, right? And like really have a strategy set up for that. And if they let it through, it's often going to be like more of a trap. Like Rahel on Caitlyn, this guy is going crazy every time he's getting Caitlyn. Hambach on Skarner, it just seems like an auto win every time he gets Skarner. Who he barred feels like they're just auto win, they get that. Even Darkwings on the Anivia, I think, is looking really, really strong. But like some of these different picks, I just feel like in a best of 5, you should never give this team Skarner. You shouldn't give them the Caitlyn bot lanes. Like it is so funny when you look at league-wide stats for the LCS this split, and it'll show you, like, top X like times people like the CS per minute or whatever. Best farm, 3 of the top 5 is all Rahel playing Caitlyn and stuff like this. It's so funny, right? Like they're just turbo stomping every game. And I feel like Rahel is just looking so comfortable on that, playing with Hui, playing like Bard, Caitlyn, and these style of lanes. And Hambach Skarner, I just think that he has been so oppressive. He's been able to find really good gank angles, whether it's early. He team fights super well. He's made game-winning plays. So I always have a bit of a concern for teams where I feel like there's just like such a clear style that they're kind of honing on. Like how will that work in playoffs?
Rahel Caitlin is what won me our internal fantasy league that we had for LCS. I picked Rahel on Caitlin, and I passed Flowers and Emily.
Huge.
He paid back. He paid back big points.
And now Kobe, because we had a bet, right? Whoever got last had to get their face painted by the winner. So Kobe gets the face paint Raz. He gets to make him a clown or whatever for LCS.
Nice.
That gives me an idea, actually. If you leave a YouTube comment, maybe I'll put your comment on Raz's face in the LCS this weekend. I'll take suggestions. What do you want me to paint on Raz's face? That's a good call to action.
Get a Rahel Caitlin on there, thank him for winning.
I'll just put all my team with the champions that they picked.
You're doing the painting? That sounds hard.
Yeah, I'm not a great artist.
That's the reward. That's the reward you get.
You see it. You're not going for
first place.
Not going for accuracy.
Actually, maybe I'll say follow the dive or watch the dive or something, just to put a big ad on his face.
That'd be
that's
good.
Perfect. That's the meta these days. But yeah, it's gonna be fun to see how that works out. Also, remember, single day tickets are live for finals. It is going to be at ASU's Mullet Arena. It is Saturday, June 13th and 14th. 2 days of high stakes competition with the top 3 teams battling for both the spring title as well as a chance to represent the LCS at MSI. And remember, this is going to be the last week with no fans in the studio. So next week we're going to be back in the Riot Games Arena. So there will be tickets for the LCS playoff games starting next week all the way through finals. So if you guys have been wanting to come down to the studio, that will be up and available not this weekend, but the following weekend and all those weekends thereafter, of course, leading all the way up to the finals. So that should be a lot of fun. We are going to take a quick break, though, and then we will be right back to talk more about the LCS.
Dude, this lobby is kind of comfy. It feels different.
If this is different, I like different. I'm staying right here.
Are you guys serious? We're about to get into game.
Emily, let us enjoy it!
You guys need to lock in. Maybe this'll help.
Oh no, not already.
Welcome back to the dive driven by Kia. We also got to talk about C9 versus TLAW because that was the battle for first. And C9, of course, did end up winning. Lyon was hoping that TL would beat them because then there was possibilities for tiebreakers and Lyon could have maybe got that spot. But C9 did win. They go undefeated. Only, I think, the 4th time it's happened in the best of 3 era in LCS. So, they do finish that undefeated split. But it's funny to me because I still feel like people are just so scarred by the playoff results that no one has more faith in them. Like even though they did go undefeated in best of 3s, people still just don't feel any more confident in them than they do in like FlyQuest, who got 4th.
No, I mean, C9 genuinely has to prove it. It is just, there's no words for it. It's the reverse Faker at Worlds, where Faker can limp through the whole year looking like they have no chance and then win. C9 is genuinely the reverse of that. They just look unstoppable come playoffs, and then they completely fall apart. And it's not one time. They've done it like 6 times in a row. So I think they've got something to prove. But at the same time, maybe it is pressure. And I assume getting those, repeated failures is not going to help with the pressure thing, right? Because it's not only the stakes of playoffs, but also this narrative that they have building of, whether it's choking or just falling apart or whatever. And so, yeah, I don't know how they're feeling, but I would like to see them not fall apart because I just like watching teams play well. It's kind of, anticlimactic when they just, play so much worse than we know they could.
Yeah, I think another factor contributing to why people aren't super hyped on Cloud9 and like, oh my God, undefeated, they're going to just run through playoffs is because we've also still seen their weaknesses even while they still win the series. They've had quite a few of the classic like over chasing or like Blabber goes in really early. There was this like Jarvan one where we even got comms of it afterwards. And then APA talked about it on the desk too. And they were talking about reviewing the play. And he's like, yeah, like we can just play off my gold card timings. And Blabber's like, let's go. And he's like in the brush or whatever, going for the gauge. So there's like some times where they still kind of overchase team fights or do that type of stuff. And then there's also some times where they get hand checked. Like individual players are sometimes like slow on flashes or, not hitting the right combos. And so they've still been able to win all their series, obviously, undefeated. But since people also have still seen the weaknesses pop up here and there, I think that's contributing. And then you've also got the narrative floating above your head of their playoff doom, impending doom. So it's interesting. But the other cool thing about this is that not only did they just beat them, but then Cloud9 got to pick, and they picked TL.
No, they picked FlyQuest.
Oh, no, you're right. They gave their explanation of why. And then and Gryffinn was like, all right, I get to flame you then if we beat you afterwards.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was interesting, right? There was the discussion on, like, will they actually pick TL? Because they just played TL, they 2-0'd TL, and they actually almost lost their series against FlyQuest. It was 2-1, but I thought in the second game, in that best of 3 that they played against FlyQuest, I thought FlyQuest was going to win. I was talking to a Arrow because he came in to do that selection, right after the series had ended, and he was saying kind of like, yeah, we had a close series against FlyQuest, but we thought we played horrible against FlyQuest, and like we still won, so it was kind of like that was in it. And it's kind of interesting because from a number of different people I've talked to, they look at TL and they say, yeah, TL on paper, like, it's better players than FlyQuest, but there's like that, like, they should be stronger, so that would make them more scary, but their drafts are way more predictable, and a lot of people think that they're a lot weaker of a drafting team compared to FlyQuest, because they do kind of play a similar style, very, very frequently. It's easy to predict what they're going to be doing, whereas FlyQuest is more up and down. You might think, oh, they're more inconsistent, that should make them easier to beat, but they also like have really good hands. They're really good team fighters, and they have some counter picks that are harder to predict. They go further out from the meta. Like when you're looking at like what Morgan's playing, all his like top 5 picks, it's like Gnar, Renekton, Sion, Ornn, Rumble. It's just like the most standard meta stuff. Korra and Yon, not that there's anything wrong with it, but they're like spamming Ashe Seraphine in the majority of their games. They're also playing a ton of Zyricon, so it's like you kind of know what they're going to do. Quid is obviously really, really talented, but Quid also, I know a lot of the other mid laners, a lot of the other teams don't think he's as good on mages. And so people are like, yeah, Quid is really good, but it's mostly on melee champs. So just don't give him a Kali angle. Don't give him a good Yone game. And like, you're kind of fine. So it's interesting, kind of hearing that debate between the two teams. And I mean, even with C9 showing a good blueprint of how to beat TL. I mean, they did 2-0 TL, and they looked really controlled throughout almost the whole series, besides like that one fight you were talking about, Kobe. But even with that, they still chose FlyQuest.
Yeah, well, I was going to mention that I thought the C9 TL series for me was, it kind of made me sure that C9's the better team, mostly because of game 2, actually, because I think game 1 was pretty close. This series really made me feel like Thanatos is kind of like way better than Morgan. I think you guys touched on it more than me last week because I wasn't totally sure. But both games just felt like Thanatos had so much more pressure in the game.
No top laner
even
close to him.
Yeah, I mean, even on Sion, that is a champion that we keep coming back to, which is like Sion's a super strong champion, but I think a lot of people don't play him that great. It's just the classic top laner tank thing. It's like, hey, I'm not going to practice tanks, guys. They're so easy. I'm just going to like, I'll lock in if I have to, but you're not going to catch me practicing that ever. And it kind of shows. Whereas I thought Thanatos Sion in game 2, because they got really behind in this game. That was the one where Blabber pretty much had the worst start ever as Nocturne, right? It was like he did the Raptor invade, and he got pushed out.
Jose called him an idiot.
Right? And okay, so that was the part where when Jose said that and I heard it, I was like, wow, that's like a really cocky thing to say, especially in a match, because it's one thing to be like, this guy did something really stupid, but when you're actually just calling him an idiot and like, what is this idiot doing? I think he said something like that. I was like, wow, he's like, he really thinks Blabber's an idiot? Like, there's no way that's right. Because Yeah, they ended up losing afterwards, and it felt like it kind of stemmed off of some of Jose's throws. So maybe he was just getting a little too overconfident, underestimating his opponents a little bit.
Yeah, it's because I remember the moment is because he knows Blabber saw him like steal his chickens, right? I don't know. Speaking of the actual phrasing of what is this idiot doing, I just know that I've literally said that exact same thing like in Flex Q comms or whatever, and you're just talking about whatever random opponent you're playing against. So maybe he wasn't specifically attaching it like, oh, Blabber's for sure an idiot. Maybe that's the thing or whatever. Maybe it's a little bit lighter, but I think it was probably just in the moment. What the heck? This guy just saw me like push out his raptors, and he knows like there's no other place I could be. Like they had a ward. I think on red too. Mm-hmm. And so he's like, yeah, what is this guy doing? But the different terminology definitely has spiced up our comms a lot. And
yeah, I might be reading into it too much. It's probably not that serious, but I did think it was kind of like a justice thing because like you were saying, it's one thing to call someone in solo queue an idiot, right? It's like, who hasn't done that? But calling Blabber an idiot, it's like, I mean, he does some pretty wild mistakes at times, but it's like if you can't realistically think he's not a good jungler. Like that just there's no argument there. So I did feel a certain way when I heard him say that, and then it felt like a bit of justice that he lost the game afterwards, but it totally could just be like I'm reading it differently than he meant it kind of deal.
Yeah. I mean, it was just kind of impressive how Blabber was able to come back into this game. I kind of read it somewhat similar to Kobe. I just kind of thought Jose's having a great start. He's feeling himself. He's talking some trash, right? Like I didn't see it as anything as a personal thing more than just like, oh, I'm owning this idiot, like that kind of thing where you're just kind of feeling yourself. But he got way ahead of Blabber. That was like just a nightmare start for Blabber. Like it could not have gone worse on this Nocturne game. And then you fast forward later on in the game, and all of a sudden, Blabber's like ahead on gold. He's gotten, like 5 or 6 kills in a row. Like he was able to get back into that game. But I thought that APA played so well in this series. Like the TF game, I thought he did a really, really good job handling Quazione. I thought he was around the map everywhere, finding flanks, finding really good angles. And, you talk about the Jose getting caught and kind of getting punished. I felt like it was APA doing it in a lot of those moments where, there was that invade over by Cloud9's blue buff where APA had hidden a bush behind him in that kind of river entrance bush over by the blue side blue buff. And he just came in behind him and catches him. He had another really good flank where he just burst out Yon, I think, and pushed him back. APA I thought was playing a really, really good series. So it was kind of cool to see him playing well because I do feel like APA plays some of these enablers quite well. His Azir and champions like that have gotten criticism. I think he has worked on them, and I think he has gotten better at them. But it's nice to see him on some of these enablers because when I think back to Nico being a popular mid laner, he's good at generally finding engages, at finding these angles. I think Annie fits that style. I think TF can kind of fit that style too. So it was a really nice series from him, and good comeback from Blabber in that second game. And Cloud9, I think definitely did show that they were the better team. I mean, Thanatos to me, I said this last week, but I feel like the gap between first and second is bigger in top lane than in any other role. And I think Thanatos is just clearly better than every other top laner. And it was kind of interesting because I was talking to some top laners, and they were telling me that they felt like, I was kind of like, oh, what do you think's up with Morgan? And they were saying how basically they felt like Morgan came in and was exactly this skill level, and everyone else is improving throughout the year and getting better with practice and stuff, and Morgan's just the exact same. So some of the people I was talking to just have felt like Morgan has kind of been figured out, and that day one lock-in was the hardest he was going to be, and he has not been able to kind of grow alongside these other players, and as other players are getting more practice and and kind of getting used to laning against him, they feel like he's been kind of figured out. So it'll be interesting to see if he can kind of prove that wrong, because I feel like he was such a big threat for TL coming into this year in lock-in and early spring split, and lately it has not really felt the same to me. He hasn't had that same kind of aura.
Yeah, I mean, this series for sure. I feel like if it wasn't for that top gap, C9 would have been in trouble because in a way we sort of anticipated this, but I think C9's bot lane was really struggling, right? So even in the first game, they're playing Varus Nautilus, which we actually haven't been seeing that many melee supports in general. And so they were up against what were they up against? It was like Nico Ezreal. It wasn't one of the normal duos.
Yeah, it was Nico Ezreal.
Yeah, it was Nico Ezreal, which was kind of like a little bit strange to me. I feel like normally you'd go Nico Caitlyn or Karma Ezreal, but it was a bit of a mismatch there. But they got ganked by the, Flash Nautilus with Jarvan, who skipped a camp. It's like, all right, you got me kind of deal. You're probably going to die to that if they really want to force it. And then afterwards, Sven had the really criminal TP back in their face and just died. And
rough.
in his defense, it was Nico. So he didn't count the 4 melee minions before he TP'd back in, but it was...
But his support was also not there, and Sven has died like this a number of times this year. And he wasted his flash after being at 1 HP when he was already going to die. So it was bad.
Yeah, it wasn't great. So, and then also the second game as well, right? I think Blabber talked about it in the post game, which I actually really liked the post game interview with Blabber because a lot of those things that happened in the game were kind of like. I didn't notice watching. I didn't notice that, initially when you were watching, I was like, why is he getting off the blue? He has Smite and Xin Zhao doesn't. But he said, obviously, yeah, Xin Zhao can't be there with Smite. But even if I got it, I would die immediately afterwards because of the laners collapsing. So it's still the correct play to peel off. And then there was the other one where he flashed in place on Nocturne. I didn't notice that at level 3, which then kind of started the domino effect for his next 3 deaths. Also, the bot lane 2v2, getting back to that, they were saying to both flash in and auto, but Sven flashed in and Vulcan went for a Q. And so they didn't get the kill. And so that was just kind of like a miscommunication, and they fell behind. So I do feel like C9's bot lane has been struggling in lane more than you would expect out of the undefeated team. So that kind of feels like an area that either needs to be patched up or other teams might look to exploit.
Yeah, especially with Team Liquid kind of building their team right back around Yon and Core JJ. So if it is going to be a time to punish that, it's got to be now for them. But honestly, pretty excited for the Cloud9 FlyQuest matchup. I guess we should go over the other previous one. We didn't do SR Dig yet.
Yep.
Because the summary of Shopify Dignitas is Contractz went beast mode. Contractz went beast mode super hard for Shopify. They needed to 2-0 also. So if they only got 2-1, then it wouldn't be fully in their hands if they made it into playoffs. But they did 2-0. Contractz went with the Olaf, which... So many teams have been prioritizing the Ashe Seraphine and lots of heavy CC. When teams draft the Ashe Seraphine, they even get more CC on top of it usually. And nobody's really, been indexing into Olaf or, pulled this out yet. And so I like that he brought back something that was kind of classically Contractz carry champion that he's done, for many years, even back when he was on Cloud9. And he absolutely 1v9 that game. He was stealing dragons. He was just killing everyone. And he even got player of the game for the second game. But when we had him on the couch, he was like, yeah, I would have given it to Zinni for some of these Anivia walls that he was putting up, which he had some of the super funny ones where it's pin someone right against an actual piece of terrain and they can't move. And he was also interrupting Pantheon W with his Anivia wall. So yeah, he was Zinni definitely getting some shout outs there from Contractz, but yeah, the series was for sure jungle carry.
Yeah, I think Zinni's Anivia wall, it was on TF, I want to say, around mid lane where it was just
killed
my
him.
God, it was tilting to watch. It was just a full on stun. He was just inside the wall for 5 seconds straight. Yeah, I hate it when that happens. Really. That sucks. When that happens to you. But I really like this look for Shopify. I thought that pretty much the whole split, it seems like they can get some stuff going. Contractz and Bvoy have kind of been their performers, but this week they kind of shifted more toward let's just put contracts on people that can get advantages in the game, but also just have this huge team fighting presence. Because stuff like Pantheon and Xin, they're not like bad team fighters, but they're more about starting the fight off and making space more so than, hey, I'm just going to go in and legit kill everybody. So I thought Olaf, he is the definition of I'm just going to go in and kill everybody. And that's what he did. It was cool to see that because, you know, when you see Ashe Seraphine, I think they had like one other low mobility champion as well, but just very high CC team comp. Olaf's great. And it's not...
Cassio.
Yeah. Cassio.
Yeah.
When I was seeing it initially, I was thinking like, okay, usually the combination that works well for Olaf is if the enemy team is immobile with a lot of CC because you can ignore it. But then also like if they're too high DPS, then it can be kind of hard to do what you want to do as well because Olaf's not that tanky. He does a ton of damage and he'll heal up some, but unless he's extremely ahead, like he could just run in and get burst down if they focus him. But obviously he had a really good game, got super ahead. He even did kind of like a creative early game that game where he sort of got himself behind a little bit because he cleared top to bottom, recalled, and then normally you would go back out top side to reclear, but he went bot side again, went for the dive, which was super unexpected for his team. So I think that combination for Contractz of something that has a lot of early game agency, he's a very creative player, but then also being able to have a big team fight presence could work for this team because him and Bvoy been playing really well. But even in game 2, they picked Wukong, who's just got buffed recently. His win rate went up like I think almost 2% or something. So a lot better in jungle now. And that champion is very good at team fighting. He's been kind of a staple in pro play for a really long time, and it's rare when you have this weak early game jungler, but Wukong's just like so strong later that it makes up for it. So I really like that direction for Shopify. I think if they keep doing that, because while Contractz has been doing really well, I thought game 2 their soul laners were looking rough. You know, it almost felt like going into the game, the coach was like, hey, soul laners, we're going to put you on champions. It's like, you can lose lane. It's fine. You've got a lot of utility. Hey, even if you die, you're Sion and Nivea. You'll still do something after you die. And then Contractz, you know, you just carry these guys. Like, they'll just die, and then you clean up. So I that probably wasn't their literal strat, but it's kind of what happened. So I feel like they might try to keep that going. It seems like they've still got, you know, a pretty tough road ahead. Looking at all the other teams in playoffs, they're definitely the underdog. But it was cool to see Contractz do well. And, you know, maybe he was out the Nasus or some other like random carry junglers, and maybe they can make something happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I like the draft around the Olaf too, because like what you're talking about, sometimes, you know, great, it's Ashe Seraphine, I'm immune to their CC. You pop ult, you walk forward, and Cassio and Ashe just hit you, and you just die. But they have Annie, who's like diving, creating chaos alongside you. Obviously, Molten Shell can be kind of nice, and they have the Melio, right? So Melio is able to kind of help enable you a bit too. It's not as strong as if you're like paired with the Seraphine yourself or something along those lines, but I just thought their comp was pretty good, and I feel like Contractz has been, to me, clearly their best player throughout the split. You know, even in some of their losses. You know, thinking back to when they played against Lyon, he had that Pantheon game where he had like a crazy start, had like 8 kills, and then they ended up losing. And even earlier than that, I think it was like way back at the start of the split against TL, he had this Poppy game where he was just like completely 1v9, getting so many kills, making really good plays, and they lost that game too. So I feel like he has had a number of these pop-off games throughout the split. I don't think he's been like perfect or anything in all their losses by any means, but I feel like he has been a real carry threat. And it is cool to see, you know, more of these different style of champs come out, like the Olaf, the Nasus, different stuff. Because when I saw the Olaf come out, I was like, oh snap, like Blabber could bring back the Olaf. Like that's the champion that I associate Blabber with the most still. When I think of Blabber all time, I always just think of his Olaf. That's the one that like always was kind of that perfect duo to me. So yeah, it'll be cool to see how Contractz does. You know, as Kobe was touching on earlier, Shopify is definitely the team that I think is like the biggest underdog going into playoffs, right? A lot of the other teams do respect Sentinels and their ability to maybe upset someone in the lower bracket, but Sentinels and Shopify both will start in the lower bracket. So, of course, they won't be playing this week. They'll have to be waiting for the losers of the first match. But the upper bracket matches that are going to be this week are C9 versus Fly on Saturday, and then Lyon versus Team Liquid Alienware is going to be on Sunday. So we have really good matches to start off playoffs.
All right, we got to do our predictions because they are such good matches and because they are so contentious. The Cloud9 FlyQuest one, Raz did the pros episode with, Darkwings, and all of them were like, ooh, this one's really close. I think it comes down to who drafts better. And then they're like, actually, it's like who sleeps better and then performs better. They're like, keep on making like the difference between them smaller and smaller. And they're like, it could go either way. And I feel like that's super cool considering Cloud9's undefeated and they picked FlyQuest. And people still are like, ooh, this could go either way. It's so
lost
close.
Twice as many games as C9 in the regular season. And people are still saying it could go on.
But they're like up and to the right, they've been scaling super hard and they're just coming off crazy, 1v9 Nasus game. And so it's super hyped. I like they had a Castle on there as well. And they were talking a lot about like the individual lane matchups and stuff. It's kind of funny how everybody only really paid attention to their own lane, and they just kind of ranked all the other teams by whatever. Like Castle was like ranking them by their top laner, Darkwings was like ranking them by their mid laners and stuff. But they all seemed pretty much in consensus that it was like, well, they favored Quad over APA, but obviously it's going to be Thanatos over Gatgos, and then bot lane. They all favor Masu, over Sven. I think with a lot of things that you guys were touching on even earlier with Sven too. So when you're going down there, I would say Blabber probably advantaged, but that's still really 50-50. Yeah. It's only like I would say Blabber advantaged based on their previous matchup, but with what Gryffinn has been showing and his improvements, like he also lost to Inspired last time, and now he beat Inspired, and he did it with his Nasus pick. So who's not to say that could actually be a, Gryffinn favored matchup or lane and flip this time around too. So if you're going lane by lane and, the pros are basing a lot of this off of their scrims and, data like that stuff too. So it definitely could go either way and be super exciting. And maybe it does depend on draft.
Yeah, I mean, draft versus for any close series, draft is going to matter so much, and I feel like draft in a best of 5 matters way more than best of 3 because you can actually pinch teams pretty heavily on their champion pool, especially if it's close. You go game 4, game 5. You have to be able to be flexible and not just have a champion that you can play, but it has to make sense in the context of your comp, right? And kind of what you're talking about was the same reason that I predicted FlyQuest to beat C9 in the last best of 3, right? They didn't beat them, but my argument was kind of that I thought FlyQuest has better carries than C9, right? I think they have a better mid laner. I think they have a better bot laner. And I still kind of believe that to be true, but I also think, it's not just about the AD carry. I think Vulcan has been incredible. Vulcan might very well win MVP. We'll have to wait and see what happens there, but like he's been fantastic. I think he's definitely deserving of that consideration. I know, even talking to Anero, I asked him who he thought he would give MVP to from his team. He said Vulcan. So Vulcan has been playing really, really well, is getting that kind of like support from his own team as well. And Thanatos is clearly better, even though Gryffinn has been doing better and better. And I could see Gryffinn having a series where, he could best Blabber. So far, Blabber has the history on his side. So, it's just one of those things where it's like, do you believe more in like the flashes of brilliance that we've seen from FlyQuest and then they can kind of string it together? Or do you believe more in C9? Are you worried about C9 like choking in playoffs, even though it's just the first round, or is that not till like a later thing? I don't know. I think it could actually be a really competitive series. So I think it's pretty exciting. Just because I predicted the upset last time, I kind of want to just do it again and predict FlyQuest again and see if they can win. But I feel like the smart money is on Cloud9. But yeah, I don't know. I kind of just have had a feeling last time, and I kind of just feel like FlyQuest definitely still could do it in a longer series. But no Jhin. Otherwise, all bets are off. Otherwise, Cloud9's winning.
Ooh, a lot of games for Masu to resist the urge to not lock him in at some point because I don't think Sven's going to be taking him away. Well, I mean, if I'm C9, I'm not doing that. That would do him a favor. This one, my immediate prediction would probably be like C9 3-1 just because I think that, especially in playoffs, in best of 5s, the experience is going to help a whole lot. But I mean, C9 also has a lot of experience just choking in playoffs, so maybe it won't. I think that if C9 loses, it would be like a 3-0 from FlyQuest because I think that if the series goes super long, it probably favors C9 because I think FlyQuest have like they have a bunch of tricks. They have like cute jungle picks with the Shen, with the Nasus that no one else is really playing. I think that when it comes down to just their overall ability to play as a solid team, given any meta champion against other top teams, any meta champion, I think they're maybe slightly worse, but I think that they have like a lot of clear strengths that they can beat other teams with. And so if they draft really well and they play to those strengths, I think, they could totally win. But I think like Gakkos on carries is very good, but you're going up against Thanatos. I don't think you're going to be like bullying him out of lane most of the time. And if there are more tank matchups, then it seems like Thanatos is also playing those really well. So I think that in a longer series, it's not super likely for me that FlyQuest will be able to win, but not impossible.
Yeah, I want to predict FlyQuest. I almost feel like I kind of have to go with the Cloud9 side though, just to go against the people that are like they're gonna choke in playoffs. It always happens. But I wanted to go for FlyQuest for real reasons with the real improvement that they've had. Like I said earlier, like I thought their game plans have been really intelligent. They've improved a lot on not only their like fight selection but also their macro, and the players are playing well individually. But I don't think Cloud9 are going to have some sort of big collapse. I think they're going to be the same as what we've seen. And the same as what we've seen did go undefeated, but wasn't sparkly clean stomping everybody.
Almost lost to FlyQuest. Very close.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what we've seen already also could have just lost to FlyQuest. I don't think it takes a big collapse for Cloud9 to lose to FlyQuest in a best of 5. It just takes us like getting deeper and fearless, and then your Nasus and a lot of these extra picks that you have might have a bigger effect. It's interesting because also there's the big dichotomy between top lane and bottom lane. I think everybody's like most sure Cloud9's going to win top lane, and FlyQuest 80 carry position at the very least is probably like Masu favored. I do think this Vulcan point is a really good point though, because Vulcan has been an absolute monster. And sometimes support diff, especially junglers, love to cite this. Support diff can just take over the entire map and make jungle win and make mid lane win as well. So it's not just bottom lane that it affects. So I kind of feel like I still got to go for Cloud9. Plus, then it makes it cooler if FlyQuest do win and upset them. So I'll go 3-2. I'll go 3-2 Cloud9.
It should be an exciting series. I do think it's going to be pretty close. I expect both these series to be pretty competitive, or at least I'm hoping for that, because I think that makes it for a super exciting playoffs as well. If we have two competitive series, then even in any kind of like permutation of rematches could be really, really good. Team Liquid Alienware versus Lyon will be the next match, which I think is also really cool. We did just see this recently, and Lyon was able to win, but also another pretty competitive series. And the question I think on everyone's mind, at least on my mind and the people I've been talking to, is kind of like, how much will Lyon commit to one top laner versus the other for playoffs? Are they just going to play Dhokla, and like that's kind of what they've been practicing with the whole year? They won with him in lock-in. Are you going to commit to Dhokla? Are you going to keep swapping back and forth for top laners? What is the strategy going to be? Because when you think back to lock-in, Lyon did not have a good start at all in the round robin, but then come in knockouts, they dominated, right? They kind of just stomped everyone from the lower bracket, ran the table. But that was Dhokla playing the whole way through. And when they played against TL, it was largely around Dokla's range counterpicks. Like that's actually how they beat TL, because that was at the time when everyone was praising Morgan and saying Morgan was like so good. And so their whole strategy was just Varus and Vayne and all these kind of picks, and just like, all right, we're just going to make it so Dokla's not even necessarily stomping you, but you're just not getting a lead. And then they felt like TL didn't have any other way to play besides through Morgan. So like Dhokla was such a big part of that. So I wonder even more, because of how they beat them in lock-in, will they commit to one top laner, and what sort of style are you going to play?
Yeah, I think this one is way harder to predict than for me, because I don't know, man. I feel bad for Castle because isn't he on some insane personal loss streak as well? Like a number of games lost consecutively. I don't remember exactly what it is.
Yeah, he's in the running for. So they have this stat of the first 100 games that you have played in the LCS, who has the lowest win rate, and he's in the running for that. And he has kept losing since he got traded to Lyon, of course.
Yeah, I think he has it almost locked for worst win rate all time in first 100 games of LCS. So
That's tough. Okay, I looked it up really quick. It looks like he's at about 11 consecutive losses, and I think
that's tough.
Dhokla has that or more wins. And granted, it doesn't necessarily mean it's his fault, but at the same time, it's hard to ignore that kind of statistic, right? It's like, okay, he was on the lowest team. All right, he gets traded to the best team. All right, no more excuses. Oh, he's losing every game with the best team. Well, maybe the team's not playing well. Nope, they're winning every game with the other guy. It's just like, ooh, that's tough to spin in a way that doesn't make it look like it's his fault. Granted, like I don't think he's bad or anything. I think it could genuinely be
is the spin, right? Like they haven't played together, so I think that does matter.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm not at all saying he's not a good player. I'm just saying right now the stats that are following him around are fairly damning.
Yeah,
they don't look good. I'd like to see it turn around because I think he's looked totally solid, and I'm in his defense. You know, I'll be his lawyer. I'll say, hey, it's not his fault. Everyone can lose a ton of games in a row without it being their fault. It happens, but I don't know if they should play him in the series because
You're the worst lawyer of all time. First, you present
I don't
all
want
this
him getting any more
evidence
losses. I
of
don't want him
him
getting any
to
more
look
losses.
terrible stats, and then you're like, also, I don't think they should play him.
Your Honor, my client is completely innocent of all
He
the
doesn't
charges.
pay me enough. He
But
does
just
not
in
pay me
case he's
enough.
not innocent, you might not want to risk anything.
He shouldn't be out in public. Nah.
What a lawyer.
Yeah, I tried my best. Didn't go to law school, unfortunately. But yeah, I don't know who I'd go with for this series. I think it's so on the fence for me. If I flip a coin, Lyon. I'll say Lyon 3-2 just because I think they've done great with Dhokla. I think they have very high highs as a team. I think their carries are just super solid. Pretty much the whole team, I think, looks solid most of the time. They have random underperformances here or there like any other team would, but it just doesn't seem likely that they would get completely blown out in the series. I think that TL, to me, has definitely looked shakier. I think that even just from their most recent games against Lyon, against when they play the better teams, it feels like they're not as solid. I think that they're very good at beating up the worst teams. I think they have this like super aggressive play style. When they're in the lead, they push it super hard and they dominate their opponents. But in games where they're not ahead, games that are closer, or maybe they're even behind, they just seem to make more mistakes than you would expect for like a top team. I think that with C9, like the way they were getting caught repeatedly, and it seemed like a lot of their engages just started getting super desperate. Like in game 2, they weren't even that behind, but they started doing stuff like rise ulting into the entire enemy team with the hope of getting onto their backline. When I see that kind of stuff, I'm like, that's just desperate. No one's sitting there being like, this is a good play. They're just like, well, we tried everything else. Let's send this one. So I think TL looks a little bit shakier. Not to say they can't win, but I'll favor Lyon very slightly.
Yeah, I'm actually super hyped for this series because it was the first matchup was my like personal favorite series that we've had almost all year. Because the first game, Lyon versus TL, I remember being really impressed with Lyon's ability to pilot one of these comps that we usually like go to international gameplay, and a North American team just gets demolished by LCK when they're running this like heavy poke, have to play around cooldowns for Twisted Fate, and have to control side lane waves really well, and have to keep up the pressure all game long, and like you can't make a mistake or you're gonna give over gold and everything's gonna collapse. And so they played this Jace, Jarvan, Twisted Fate, Ezreal, Karma, and they checked all the boxes. They were like pushing on the bottom side early. Berserker and Isles got 2v2 kills themselves. Then they played all around Twisted Fate cooldowns really well. Saint actually, his macro is really good. He was able to like teleport out of the weak side, top side play into the bottom side, keep it pushing. And like every time TL tried to make a move, they were like pushing 2 other lanes for Lyon. And I just remember the first game was so impressive to me from Lyon to be able to execute on that comp, because we've seen a lot of teams make a mistake and then fail with stuff like that. And then in the second game, it actually was really TL like controlled, because they were stacking dragons and they got Quid Yone comp, Yone Rumble comp. And like that's their bread and butter, to have Quid on like these melee specialists and stuff. But they were actually behind in gold when they had the 3 dragons. And I went back to look at the mid lane team fight, and it's the one where Jose on Skarner has to flash the Ahri, Saint's Ahri, and like barely gets the distance on the travel to hit him into the wall, and they just one-shot him and completely like delete the Ahri, one-shot at the beginning of the fight. And then off that, even though they were down in gold, they get the Dragon Soul, and then they push it to a game 3, and then game 3 comes down to this like crazy Baron where Lyon have to steal it after combining Saint, Silas, ult flash Sejuani play with the Nocturne ultimate, perfect timing from Inspired, and then Inspired wins the 50-50 flip on the Baron also, and Berserker gets a pentakill, and I was just like, oh my god, this is League of Legends. So I'm super hyped for the rematch of this. I hope that TL can do better, because I do think that even though the last game was really tense and they had to steal it, you kind of have this feeling that Lyon are better and like should be the ones to win. So I'm hoping that TL can kind of flip the script this time around and push it to a full 5 games, so we can get a full deep and fearless.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's gonna be really interesting. I think that Saint and Berserker to me are the best AD carry and mid laner in the league right now. So I feel like when you have the 2 best carries and you have this jungler that is really smart and plays this really controlled style and farm heavy, and it's team fight focused and macro style, it's like that is very beneficial to have 2 really good carries when you are going to play that kind of a style. So I do think that's pretty advantageous for them. And I think Castle is a good player, but if I was on Lyon, I would not be playing him. I just don't think it makes sense. Like, you have so much more practice right now with Dhokla, and Dhokla is winning every single game. Dhokla like understands the system you want to run. You know exactly what style of champions he wants to play. The blueprint, right? So I feel like that would be the potential wrinkle. If they try to incorporate Castle and they're not on the same page as much as they are with Dhokla, that's maybe something that could kind of change things. But barring that, I definitely feel like I'm favoring Lyon. I think that they just seem like the more well-rounded team right now. I think they've been more consistent. I think Quid has struggled more in this meta kind of than I thought he would. Not that he's been bad, but I thought he was like by far the best mid laner at the end of last year, right? And he hasn't looked like that to me. So I think there's that. I think Lyon and Core have been more up and down than Isles and Berserker. And I think if TL can get everything together and everything's working at the same time, then they could win the title. But they haven't really shown that so far this split. And I do think that some of their drafts make it more difficult for themselves, and I also think they're very predictable with drafting. They like to play the same kind of style, so I think that's something that kind of works against them a bit as well. I just can't imagine Lyon giving Quid like a really good Akali angle, really good Yone angle, and those types of champs. So I definitely feel like I'm favoring Lyon.
Yeah, I'm thinking like 3-1 Lyon. The way that I would see maybe they use Castle would be if they are at series point, like if they lose 2 with Dhokla, then put them in. I think it would be really weird if they do the same thing where they just start Dhokla and then swap them regardless for game number 2, like even if they won. I do think that would be weird. I mean, and it would have to be some explanation of, well, we prepped this specific draft, I guess.
Yeah, I'd be pretty surprised. I mean, it's playoffs, right? It's like it's do or die. Yeah. I feel like it's time to lock in, and players' feelings need to be pushed aside. Hey, even if Castle is who you want to play with in the future, I just feel like that has not worked yet. So to me, they need more time to prepare with him, and Dhokla just seems like the obvious option for playoffs, right? So that's kind of what I'm expecting, but I think it should be a really fun series.
If you want to vote for your All-Pros and MVPs as well, then you can, because the voting is actually live right now when this episode does go live at KiaLCSFanvote.com. You can vote for the Kia MVP plus the All-Pro. I just submitted my All-Pros before recording the dive here, but our deadline is tonight at midnight. Did you submit yours yet, Isaac, or are you you're waiting for the procrastination deadline?
Yeah, it's due later, so I'll do it later. We had the dive, we had the meeting, so I was collecting all the data. I'm really letting it stew. So no, I have a pretty clear idea of what I want to do for I would say 90%. There's a few that I feel like I'm kind of still debating, but we're gonna do some episodes focused on All Pro as those do get announced. So thank you, Kia, for your support and for supporting us on the dive, supporting all the All Pro awards and everything. And you can look forward to more of those discussions. But definitely get your votes in if you want to be included on that at KiaLCSFanvote.com. And that is going to wrap it up for us here on the dive, driven by Kia. Be sure to subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube so you don't miss an episode of the dive. And leave a comment about what Kobe should do to Raz's face this weekend for the bet reward. What should he put on there? Maybe you'll get some good ideas, Maybe you'll get some good ideas. That's going to happen live on Saturday. The LCS are going to return this Saturday, May 23rd, 1 p.m. Pacific, Fly versus C9. It's playoffs, and it's going to be a banger. We'll see you there.